Welcome back to another Mast Cell 360 live webinar. Unfortunately, our original guest this week was unable to join us due to a travel conflict, but we are looking to reschedule Dr. Kathleen King from Primal Trust Academy to be on with us soon. So rest assured, we will have her on because we love that program. We want you guys to learn about it if you don't know anything about it yet. But instead, we are extremely grateful and lucky to have a repeat guest on, one of our favorites, Stephen Wright from Healthy Gut. We know so much about healing comes from supporting gut health. And it's really connected to almost every topic we talk about. So because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and many of us in the Mast Cell 360 community and the MCAS community deal with the symptom of anxiety, we thought we'd bring you guys a presentation on histamine and anxiety and the relationship. So in addition to Stephen Wright, I'll be joined today by Mast Cell 360 lead practitioner Kimberly Quirk, and we're going to be discussing gut health, histamine, and anxiety, understanding the connection. So I'm going to bring our guests up in just a second, but for those who don't know me, I'm your host, Jamie Fries-Miller. I'm a health coach here at Mast Cell 360, and I have been in your shoes. I have MCAS, I'm going through my own mold detox, and I too have suffered from a period of great anxiety during my own health journey. So drop in the comments, is anxiety something that you're dealing with, have dealt with? Let us know, where you are on your healing journey. And while we wait for people to jump on, feel free to drop in the comments where you're tuning in from. And just our quick reminders that today's presentation is for informational and educational purposes. It is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness. So be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your healthcare provider. And just a reminder that some of the links shared during this presentation or on our website are affiliate links, which means Mast Cell 360 may take a very small commission if you purchase through our link, and it helps support free resources like this show. Kelly is asking, can we access this later? Absolutely. We have a replay. You can watch it here on Facebook or on YouTube. We stream on both channels, and those lives are available for you as a replay. Patty from Los Angeles, hello. Loretta, she is dropping in that she has experienced anxiety. Yes, we have been there. All right, thank you guys for tuning in and participating. So today we're going to be talking about the gut-brain connection, histamine's role in the body, and the connection and relationship between histamine and anxiety. And if we have time, we will do a live Q&A. Please be sure to only ask your question one time. It helps us keep track of them and keep it on the topic of today's live. And please understand we're unable to answer in-depth personal health questions. So just know that we also, like I mentioned, we have a bunch of replays that you can review. We're not going to be focusing on the background of, the gut microbiome or leaky gut today. Those play into the role of anxiety, but you can see the link below on the slide. We do have a lot of replays on various topics. Search the ones for Stephen Wright. He's a wealth of information on all things gut health. So I'm going to bring up Kimberly and Stephen now, and we are going to dive into today's topic. Do you guys have anything you want to say to our audience before we jump in? No? Let's do it. All right. Stephen or Kim, which one of you wants to, give a brief background on the gut-brain axis?
I can talk about that if you want. So yeah, the gut-brain axis. So what's happening in our brain is also happening in our gut, and the communication between the two. So yeah, it's bidirectional. So our thoughts can control what's happening in our gut. If anyone has experienced stress, right? And then what happens with motility in our gut, maybe could be loose stools, or it could be the slow down of the gut, right? That happens. But also what is happening in our gut biome is affecting what's happening in our brain. And that's what we're definitely going to talk about today. That communication happens through the vagus nerve. And just know that gut health really can impact mental health and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that in general, as a society for the last 100 years of medical, just medical progress or scientific progress, we've given the brain a lot of credit for things like anxiety, other psychiatric disorders, or just in general, the brain gets a lot of credit that I think is a bit overstated. And I think the research coming out these days is starting to balance the scales, is how I would say it, where, a lot of new research into mental health disorders or other brain related things, even things like memory, are starting to zero in on the gut and the gut's interplay with the brain, and how, just like you said, Kimberly, I think one thing that really is hard for people who are on their healing path is this idea that you can affect, the brain can affect the gut and the gut can affect the brain. And like, how do I focus on it and where do I start? And it can become this really confusing thing where we want to do this reductionist way of thinking. And I think hopefully by the end of today's presentation that people will start to maybe see it as a system and maybe not blame the brain, maybe not blame the gut, but kind of see it all together as one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is like, it's not just one or the other. It's kind of like, how do we address all the symptoms, like to not underplay gut issues, but to not underplay, someone who has anxiety. How do we support them as that whole person?
Yeah, I know personally for myself, I've only had a few panic attacks in my life, and they correlate exactly when I also had the worst gut, related health. Basically, right before I started to actually tackle my own gut health is when I was experiencing my worst sort of brain-related symptoms around anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. And so I don't think those things are separate. I think they're highly correlated, and I think that's what the research is starting to really tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's dive in. So, Kimberly, do you want to kind of give us a little bit of the basics around histamine, just for those? I think histamine is one of those hot topics right now. And so even people who may not be as aware of mast cell activation syndrome, but they're becoming aware that, they have histamine issues.
So yeah, I mean, histamine signals our immune system, right? It also is a neurotransmitter. A lot of people don't realize that. We actually have H4 receptors in our brain for histamine. So some people may not have those typical symptoms that we associate with histamine, like the skin issues and the hives and the itching, and it might, or even the gut issues, but they might just have those neuro issues. So it is worth sort of looking at that. And anxiety is one of those, right? So, and yeah, histamine can be, so sometimes people also think of histamine as, it's just the histamine I'm eating, which is one way we get histamine, but it's also produced internally. So the body may be turning on histamine, or those mast cells releasing excess histamine as well. So it's part of that immune response, the mast cells, releasing it for a reason. It can be synthesized by certain gut bacteria. And then you also have those high histamine foods that we talk about so much, the aged foods, the cured foods, the fermented foods, the alcohol, citrus. And it all adds up to an individual histamine bucket. So it's how much are you eating? How much is your body producing? And then also, how well are you detoxing the histamine, or getting rid of that histamine? And everybody's bucket looks a little bit different. And your bucket can change from day to day, right? Too. Like, I know I have a lot of clients now who all of a sudden their histamine stuff is a little bit worse, or the mast cell stuff's a little bit worse. And it has to kind of do with, the pollen. It's pollen season, right? So this just adds a little bit extra burden. So yeah, just thinking of it as a bucket, I think is huge to think about.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about histamine intolerance next. So like, this is kind of the bucket being full and your body not being able to break it down. Stephen, do you have anything to add? I want to like preface this because I kind of want you to tell people about histamine not being the bad guy, right? You've said that before, but I feel like it's an important thing to like bring up. So if you can tell people that histamine's not the bad guy.
Yeah, I guess I've become the histamine protector or something. But yeah, I think, there are various ways from, things in psychiatrics or wisdom from the ages where things like where they're saying is like what you resist persists. And in healing, and especially healing from histamine, there's no getting away from histamine. In fact, you need a certain amount of histamine every single day to be healthy. It helps make your stomach acid, which is important and critical for your gut health. It helps with your sleep-wake cycles. Like it is part of your immune system. It needs to function properly in the immune system. And so I think of histamine much like a hormone, actually, like estrogen or testosterone or progesterone. We don't want too much of any one of those hormones. We've all heard of stereotypes of somebody who's got too high of testosterone, like the big meathead who's just angry all the time. And there's other stereotypes around the other hormones. And I think the same is true with histamine. We want the right amount, not too little, not too much. Otherwise, we get kind of some stereotypes. And so I think in the mast cell activation crowd and in the histamine intolerance crowd, it can become very easy to treat it like, say, gluten or something and be like, that's the enemy. But it's not. It's inside of you every single day, and you need it to be healthy every single day. And so trying to find a friendship with your body and with histamine and figuring out just exactly what does your body need. In some cases, that could be, a supplement to help break down histamine. In some cases, that could be a different diet. In some cases, well, actually, in most cases, that's maybe a different way of relating to your life. So your mind-body connection is more stable and more powerful. In either case, I just hope that most people start to see histamine intolerance and MCAS as like a signal from your body to say, hey, something's not right. And I'm doing my best to handle what I'm given every day. And the beautiful thing is there's shows like this, there's your entire clinic out there to help people navigate through why the body is throwing out these signals of too much histamine.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great overview. All right, so you had mentioned a little bit about breaking it down. So let's go into like when histamine does become maybe a problem.
Do you want to go ahead, Kimberly?
Yeah, go
I can. Okay. So yeah, histamine intolerance, right, is just an imbalance, just like Stephen was talking about, right? So it is an imbalance, and I agree, histamine is not the enemy, but most people we see have a histamine overload going on. So yeah, histamine intolerance is the imbalance in the amount of histamine in your body and your ability to break it down. I saw somebody here said they eliminated all the major high histamine foods, but they're still having high histamine intolerance issues. So then the question is, why is your body creating excess histamine? It might not be the food piece. It might be, for me, it was an environmental piece. My body was creating so much excess histamine to let me know that mold was in my environment. So making sure we're checking that environment. But it could also be that maybe Liz, she says that maybe it's the breakdown piece too. Mm-hmm. So DAO is the main way that we break down histamine in the gut. It's an enzyme that your gut would normally make. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but it's a brush border enzyme, I believe. And leaky gut often impairs that production of DAO and increases histamine release. So it kind of feeds in. So histamine intolerance can create many symptoms in many body systems. So the gut issues, right? It can look like loose stools for many people. It can look like skin issues. That was my issue. Head to toe hives, respiratory issues. Sometimes it just shows up as a breathing, that shortness of breath or breathing issues. And asthma, it can look like asthma for a lot of people. Brain issues. And some people just have those neurosymptoms like that brain fog that just won't go away, or that anxiety or like impending doom kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think what's really important for people to understand is that leaky gut impairs DAO, but just generalized gut inflammation also impairs DAO, because DAO is made in your small intestine, and any sort of inflammation, whether that be non-celiac gluten sensitivity, actual celiac disease, maybe you're just having like it's like not a big deal, but it is a big deal. But maybe you're having something like SIBO or SIFO or other infections, basically that there's damage to your small intestine. All of that is going to decrease your body's DAO, its natural DAO production. And so I think a lot of people will always ask the question, like I guarantee you, if it's not someone's typing it right now, they'll say like, how do I get more DAO? And like the number one way to make more of your own DAO is to just not damage your small intestine. Like, take care of your small intestine as much as you can, because that's where it is produced.
Wow. Yeah, I have celiac disease, so you're speaking to the choir over here. All right, so here's the meat of what everyone here today is hoping to learn about and understand. Kimberly, do you want to kick us off? Or
Yeah, I can do that. So yeah, histamine, I was saying before, is a neurotransmitter, that H4 receptor in the brain. So it's very excitatory neurotransmitter in your central nervous system. So that's where that anxiety piece comes from. But also it regulates your sleep-wake cycle, and can promote wakefulness and alertness when we don't want to be alert, right? So I know for me, I was waking up every night at 3:13 a.m. Like anytime I'd wake up, it would be that time. That to me was a signal, before I knew about histamine intolerance, that that's what was going on with my body. It was waking up, because at that point in time, there's like a little bit of a histamine increase from the liver. It's also involved in learning, memory, motivation, appetite control. So there's that good side of histamine that we do want. And then brain histamine follows a circadian rhythm. So having good sleep-wake cycles is important for having histamine regulation and histamine balance. So thinking about that, if you're someone who doesn't sleep a lot, and you're not going outside a lot, light signaling can be huge, like getting early morning sun, before it's above 30 degree angle, noontime sun and sunset. It just can be just a few minutes just in your eyes, can really help set that circadian rhythm. And then the histamine's effect on other neurotransmitters. So histamine modulates and releases other neurotransmitters, right? So that balance gets off, can suppress serotonin production, which is an issue for many of us, right? If we're not producing enough serotonin in the gut, and then also, the histamine is kind of throwing that off. It influences your dopamine release, and it interacts with both glutamate and your GABA system. So it just has an effect on all the other neurotransmitters. And yeah, it makes sense, Stephen, that you're referring to it like a hormone, because just like a hormone, it's affecting everything else and throwing off that balance.
Yeah, we have few more points on the next slide as well.
So excess histamine in the brain creates a state of neural excitation, right? So anxiety. So it can manifest as hypervigilance, racing thoughts, difficulty relaxing. Histamine affects the amygdala, which is your fear center, and intensifies those emotional responses. Like you might be like, oh, I'm not myself. I'm over emotional. So that's sort of being triggered. It can influence your HPA axis, potentially increasing stress hormone production. So the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, which is your stress axis, and just increase that stress hormone production. Fluctuating histamine levels can contribute to mood instability. And then correlation between histamine dysregulation and various mood disorders, including anxiety. I know I've seen a lot of clients come through who are on anxiety meds, and I always wonder, like, did they get put on that, or was it a histamine issue? And if that body piece was addressed, might they be able to have done something else and not be on that med for anxiety?
Yeah, when Stephen mentioned like earlier, his gut symptoms were worse when he was having those higher anxiety type things. It reminded me of a moment in graduate school for me where it felt like I was having this out of body experience. So that's like what I want to kind of alert people to, is often like when we go to the traditional Western medicine route and it's like, oh, it's all in your head, like being told that, right? But if you're aware of it happening, like this out of body experience where you're looking down at yourself and being like, I'm acting crazy right now, and I know this is wrong. Like, I just want to acknowledge that that's not in your head, because you're so aware of it happening and you're like, there's something wrong here. And so that awareness is really key in understanding that, like, okay, it's really not there.
Yeah, I remember that was one of my early symptoms, was having some panic attacks. Never had panic attack in my life, right? It was just things had built up in my system. And my body was trying to communicate. I always say I wish the body would speak English and tell me what's going on, send me a text. But yeah, we got to get really clued into what our body is trying to tell us.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like simple for most people to on one side, if you had like a Venn diagram, and like on one side you were like, list all the high histamine intolerance symptoms like tachycardia, racing heart, flushing of your cheeks or skin, other types of just like, I got to do something, I can't slow down, my mind won't stop thinking, and then like list out what does anxiety look and feel like in your body. And they're so overlapping. Like they're like, I would say probably 80% are overlapping on those two. And so I think it's really hard to say, it's impossible to say all anxiety is a histamine issue and all people with histamine have anxiety. Like that's not true, but it's very easy for those two to occur at the same time in somebody, and histamine be like, say, one part of your anxiety connection. And maybe another part is your actual sort of like mental models and emotional models for reality. And together, those two can create each other, right? They end up being this loop that just feeds back on itself, causing worse things. And so some people, before all the other comments have flown in here, there's a bunch of people that were like, the low histamine diet sucks, which I agree. It does suck. All the good foods are gone. And there's other people saying like, I'm on low histamine, but I'm still having symptoms. And I think what hopefully people are starting to get here is that those symptoms could be coming from your environment. They could be coming from your own mental models of the world. They could be coming from your gut, like your literal gut microbiome, your little what's inside of your gut, or your gut's inability to produce the number one way to get rid of these symptoms, which is diamine oxidase, DIO. And so diet is very helpful for many people and extraordinarily frustrating and just like inconsequential and annoying for a lot of other people with histamine issues. It's just not a big enough needle mover because for them, diet wasn't it wasn't their biggest thing. It was one of these other things. It's just something that is very easy to control versus like just telling yourself like, don't be mad today. Don't be mad today. Feel safe today. Feel safe today. And like, of course, that, often isn't the easiest way to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm going to skip ahead to this slide because that's kind of what we're talking about now is like this overlap, right? You had mentioned the Venn diagram and now I'm like, oh, that would have been a great visual for this presentation. But yeah, there's those physical symptoms like the shortness of breath, the racing heart, the dizziness, like which, if we had that Venn diagram, you'd list those symptoms for both histamine intolerance and anxiety. The cognitive symptoms, again, you can have brain fog with histamine intolerance, but brain fogs also associate difficulty concentrating, feelings of that impending doom that Kimberly mentioned earlier. Those can be both symptoms as well. We now know that the histamine is part of that wake sleep cycle and because of its neurotransmitter properties and abilities. So, it affects our sleep, but also when we wake up because of possible histamine dump, we often then experience those anxiety symptoms, those racing thoughts. And then of course, we talked a little bit, Stephen, feel free to elaborate on really those gastrointestinal symptoms. We didn't really talk about that, but like for me, I knew I had anxiety. I rode horses competitively in college and I could never eat breakfast before a horse show because I had like those butterflies, like that feeling of anxiety, like I had to perform well, I had to do well, like I was in control of a 1,000-pound animal. And I think that, that was the anxiety symptom, right, was manifesting as that, but it's also part of the nervous system basically saying like, you're kind of in fight or flight right now. So you're not in rest and digest. You're not going to be able to digest the food because your stomach's like, so it manifested as a stomach, like nausea, butterflies, right? So yeah. So, again, our body's sending us signals all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think if someone mentioned that they do have issues going to the bathroom, like not everybody identifies as having gut issues because sometimes the other issues in your life are so much louder and stronger that you're not even aware that like, hey, my bowel habits are like not normal or this bloating that I feel every day is just like mildly annoying. But the fact that I get vertigo and I can't like finish my work, or, I can't even have social connections or go out to a restaurant, like that's much more important than a little bloating. I just want to say that we have done a lot more in-depth talks about the gut, exactly what protocols you could do for the small intestine, different things like that. We're going to cover a few things at the end of this talk. But I think what's important to know is that every step you take for your mental well-being, like your mind-body connection, your nervous system, that's going to help your mast cells and your histamine, but it's also going to help your gut. It's also going to help your brain and any anxiety or other mental health issues you might have. Anything you do for your gut, if you decide to take enzymes, or if you decide to go on a low histamine diet, or if you decide to avoid gluten, or take a butyrate supplement, anything you do there that's helping your gut will also help the histamine issues, as well as help the brain related issues. And so just hopefully think of this kind of like a spiral upward, where it's like, okay, right now I'm focusing, say, on my circadian rhythm, and I'm going to get that sunlight that Kimberly mentioned in my eyes, which is, trust me, I find it extraordinarily annoying that this is how our bodies work. Like, I don't want to get up and go outside, especially when it's cold in Colorado. I'm like, this is so dumb. Why are we built like this? And doing that and focusing on that will help you. It does. I've seen it help myself. I've seen it help a lot of people, as annoying as it is. The same thing's true if you are, working on your vagal nerve, you're working on your mental well-being. That stuff, I find it extraordinarily annoying that we have to do that work, but it also seems to be very helpful for myself, and I've seen it be very helpful for others. And just know that each one of those steps is helping multiple systems at the same time. And so if you do that in conjunction with a really powerful supplement protocol to stabilize your mast cells or break down your histamine, you can see quicker gains than you would if you were just like, I only have histamine issues and I'm only going to focus on this one narrow, set of criteria that I have. You can kind of miss out on a lot of gains.
Yeah. So many layers, right? So many layers.
Yeah. I mean, and we've talked a little bit about this already, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's kind of like a cycle that we get into, like we've talked about on past ones, where people are, you've said it before, Kimberly, in our conversations, it's like people come in with hormone issues and they're like, oh, fix my hormones. And it's like, nope, we got to go upstream a little bit more, like what's causing the hormone disruption. And so, high estrogen is linked to histamine, and histamine dumps more estrogen. So same thing with anxiety. It's like histamine can trigger the anxiety attack. Anxiety
triggers the histamine,
causes the cortisol to make more mast cell degranulation, which is more histamine. Right. So let's get into like, what can people do, right? Because, these are for education. We want to leave you feeling empowered with, okay, how do we actually improve? And like Stephen mentioned some things already, Kimberly mentioned the light signaling, the nervous system work. So I'm going to pass it over to Stephen, because I think somebody mentioned like, what is the DAO recommendation, right? And obviously he has created a DAO supplement, so we want to have him talk about that. So yeah, let's get into the diamine oxidase.
Yeah. So again, diamine oxidase is the way you break down histamine outside of the cell. And inside of the cell, you do this other pathway called HNMT. There's no known way that I'm aware of to take HNMT or anything like that. And so all of the last 20, 30 years of research and development has been on DAO. I think that a lot of people have like a very bad perception of DAO. Number one reason is, why do I have to take this thing? My body's supposed to do it, right? Like this sucks. I'm taking a Band-Aid. And another one is, I tried DAO and it didn't work for me. So DAO is not helpful. And I think what's really important is the first line on the slide in front of you. The only supplement that degrades histamine is DAO. Every other thing we're going to talk about is going to be about preventing histamine release or controlling it or like making it less. there's no other way that I'm aware of, and Kimberly, feel free to connect me or correct me, or Jamie as well, but there's no other way to literally break histamine down other than taking exogenous DAO. And so I don't want you to feel like, and I don't want to feel like taking DAO makes me broken or is some sort of Band-Aid. It is a powerful solution when you get the right product and the right formulation. And for me, it's almost kind of become like a super tool that I just have like have the little blister packs like all over. I have them in my backpack. I have them in the truck. I have them kind of all over. Because what I've realized is that it actually allows me to get away with doing less of the mind body work or less of the sunlight work. Now, I'm not encouraging not to do that work, but I am saying that it's powerful if you use the right brand. And what makes Histaharmony different than other brands? Because I tried a lot of other DAO brands too. I didn't talk about DAO for 5-10 years because there was nothing out there that I recommended, is the enteric coating on DAO. Now, there's other features we can talk about, like how we only do blister packs so the oxygen can't degrade the DAO and all these different things. But in general, I have rarely found somebody who's experiencing histamine-related issues, if they're willing to take 2, 4, 6, or 8 a day, which is annoying, right? It's super annoying, which is also why we priced our product the lowest on the market, of like actual professional grade products, not like ripoffs from China that you don't even know what's inside of them. But of the professional grade products, we've tried to make DAO extraordinarily affordable because some people do need to take a higher dose. And when you do that, what I think it gives you is, if you get the right dose of Histaharmony in your life, it gives you relief such that you're actually able to start to tackle maybe the environmental issues inside your house. Because if you're not in a state of regulation and capacity, it's so hard to figure out how to like remediate your house or even hire a contractor or decide to leave your job or whatever you need to do to get out of the environmental situation. It's like almost impossible because you're too excitatory, you're too scatterbrained, everything's very emotional for you. And look, I'm highly emotional. So like maybe it's the histamine, maybe it's just me. I think it's partially both. But my point being is that don't think of DAO as like this sort of Band-Aid that is not that powerful. It's just kind of like getting you by. Think of it as kind of like a super tool that allows you to make progress in some other area of histamine intolerance that can be maybe part of the root causes for you.
Yeah. So your specific DAO, there are a bunch on the market. But Histaharmony, I want to point that out, is your specific one. And that's one pictured here. The link at the bottom of the slide, so /store-healthy gut, goes to Mast Cell 360 store, but your company does also sell internationally. So if you are international and you want to order, Healthy Gut has an amazing customer support. Feel free to let us know in the comments if you are international, and our support team, Zach, can give you the link directly there as well. The
other thing I wanted to say that I see in clinic with Histaharmony is sometimes people are using a different form of DAO and they're needing to take 6 to 8 of them. I've found clients maybe needing half of that, if not less. So it is the way that they encapsulate it and the way that they store it has made it a much more effective product, which kudos.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And just so you guys are all aware, in the DAO market, people are talking about this in the comments here. So there's only 2 known ways to get DAO. One is to extract it from pork kidney, and the other is to purify it from like legumes, basically. And the majority of the products in the world are pork-based extraction and processing methodologies, because the legume version is extraordinarily, like, it's like way more steps. Like, obviously growing legumes is extraordinarily cheap and way easier than, killing a pig, right? That whole process it would be beautiful if we could just get the lentils or the legumes, oftentimes it's lentils, but oftentimes it's like pea shoots or other things like that as well. It would be beautiful if that worked. It would be beautiful if the companies out there that are selling vegetarian versions of DAO, if their processes were working. It's been my experience in me building products. This is not me educating, but me trying to build a product, because I know the majority of the world would rather have a vegan, vegetarian version. I'm not dumb when it comes to building a business. I would rather just offer something and not get 1,000 questions all the time about, why does it have to be from pork and all these things. The problem is that the legume process includes a ton of steps, and it becomes significantly more costly, and its tolerance, like the actual product that you extract, is extraordinarily more sensitive to things like oxygen and things like that. So it becomes like this very fragile, very long extended extraction time. And therefore building products with it, like if we built a Histaharmony that was a vegan Histaharmony, it might be double the price. And I just feel like at that price point, a lot of people are going to be into it. And so that's why the majority of the products are pork-based products. And then inside of that, there's a lot of different ways to extract to get to the final end product. And each way of extracting kind of gives you pros and cons. And so we have a proprietary process in Spain that we license. We also coat it enterically so your stomach acid doesn't destroy it, which I think is a reason why most of the other products in the market kind of work sometimes, kind of don't work all the times, is they're not protected from the stomach acid. And so if you've tried Histaharmony and it hasn't worked, which I saw some people say that totally happens. We get about 3% of people returning the product. Number one, you might need it at a higher dose. If you didn't try 2 or 3 or 4 capsules, sometimes that's what you need. But for the other people, maybe you do need to try a different brand and give it another shot from a different brand, because they are going to extract it differently than what we do. And so the reason why we do it the way we do it is because this one's actually been patented. There's studies on ADHD, fibromyalgia, all kinds of really cool studies around actually lowering the amount of histamine. And then the way that we built the product, we ran a bunch of tests on all the other products out there. And I know that ours, what you see on the back of the box, we exceed that label claim. And I don't agree with the other companies' labeling. And I think a lot of other companies are either ignorant or mislabeling on purpose just to get a product in the market.
Okay. All right. So that is one, right? We talked a little bit about DAO being like one way to degrade the histamine that's already in your body. And then, like Stephen mentioned earlier, we're going to have some additional recommendations that are going to help kind of keep that load from getting higher. So Kimberly, do you want to go over? Yes, we know the low histamine diet sucks.
Yeah, I was on it for years. I do want to say this. I was on this for years, and now I don't follow it at all. So I can eat anything if I choose to. Not everything I want to eat after all that. So I do want to say that. But yeah, focusing on the fresh foods prepared quickly, fresh being lower histamine. Focusing on low histamine foods, which we have a really great list there. If you go to that link at the bottom, the low histamine foods list, that list is bar none one of the better lists out there. So avoid foods that release histamine, which are usually ones that lower DAO, right? So like, I think that's like bananas and things like that. Freeze your leftovers. That's huge. And that's a habit that I haven't stopped, even though I don't really worry about the histamine. It's just a habit that I am just so used to doing. But yeah, freezing your leftovers so that you're not leaving, even if it's overnight for the next day, just freezing it is just going to slow down that buildup of histamine in the food. Therapeutic intervention. So temporary and so it is a temporary diet, right? Like the goal is to get back avocado and tomato and all the things that we love that are healthy foods, and not to be some overly restrictive thing. But yeah, I needed to do it for a while. Also needed to do low oxalate and low FODMAPs, all three at the same time. And I don't worry about any of those things right now. Yeah. So I just want to offer that hope too.
Yeah, similarly, I did it strictly for 2 months and like saw such a remediation in some of like my main symptoms, or even low-grade headaches that I didn't know were a symptom because I lived with them daily. It was like once I did the low histamine diet, I was like, oh, great. And then preemptively, like I know, Stephen, this is how I use DAO currently, is like if I eat out, I'm taking DAO. Or if I know, like I live in Maryland, so like blue crabs in the summer, every summer I would sit there eating them, like going like this, like not understanding what was going on. And now I have this tool. So I'm really excited. I can't remember if I had HistaHarmony last summer or not, but I'm definitely using it this summer.
Yeah, and so for people who are wondering, the best time to take HistaHarmony or any DAO product is about 15 to 20 minutes before your meal. That being said, I and many of our customers use it in other scenarios without food. So, for instance, like most people don't know this, car sickness or motion sickness is also high histamine. That is, Dramamine is the known thing, is an antihistamine. So that's why also the natural Dramamines are all ginger based, because ginger is a mast cell stabilizer. It also has some anti-inflammatory effects in the gut, things like that. So if you're about to go on a long car ride, you have some motion sickness, typically what we say is take 3 or 4 of them just all at once without food. That's also true if you feel like a really strong headache coming on. So the product is studied for migraines. It didn't effectively eliminate all of the migraines, because of course migraines are like histamine. There's many causes, but you can take it if you feel your histamine bucket is elevating due to the pollen, due to going to see your family, or like whatever is about to happen this summer. You're going to go traveling. So you can take them without food as well. And I do believe there's a systemic effect of lowering histamine as well. And for people asking why there's microcrystalline cellulose and other additives inside of HistaHarmony, that's what's needed to make the enteric coating. You don't just like wish an enteric coating together. You have to try to build it. And if you do the pharmaceutical ways, you end up with these like E450s, and you end up with all these synthetics, polymers and things like that I don't want to put in my body. And so if you do it the natural way, you end up concocting a enteric coating using some of these binders, if you will, that you might look at the back of the label and be really mad that something like myself put it in there. But trust me, it's in a really, really microgram dosage. And our entire company, not entire company, but like the majority of the people who buy from us do have histamine related issues. Like we serve sensitive individuals. I'm a sensitive individual. I've had these issues as well. And so just know that the majority of us can tolerate it. I do understand that if you just have a really strong aversion to it, it's not the right product for you. But just note that I would say the majority of people can tolerate it, even though there's extra ingredients in there. And maybe you guys could talk to that if you've seen that in clinic.
Yeah. So what I've seen is, most people we classify people into three categories. Hypersensitive. Those are people usually cannot handle they're usually nervous system dysregulation, so they might not be able to handle any supplement. Then the sensitive, and some do and some don't, right? And for some, they do need to, I know, Stephen, I know you hate this, but like take it out of the package and crush it, right? To try to start with a sprinkle, because their immune system wants them to go super slow. And then the more robust, or people who are able to onboard supplements, are able to take a full capsule or more. And that goes really well. And for them, they usually need to take less. The other time that I have people sometimes take it is right before bed, if they have the wake up at like 3 a.m. Just another way. I mean, they can take an antihistamine as well, but to take a little bit of DAO at bedtime can kind of help to quiet that overnight response too.
Yeah, and it does have MCT oil in it, so that may affect people who are super salicylate intolerant. So someone's asking histamine, oxalate issues, salicylate issues, can they take this? For some people with salicylate intolerance, MCT oil is pretty processed to the point where they can, and for some with salicylate intolerance, they're still sensitive. So we do have a option in our store that is it doesn't have the enteric coating, so it doesn't get to the part of the gut that we ultimately would like it to, but there is an option. So a little bit is better than none in some cases. So it's something that you as an individual may have to do some trial and error with.
Did you guys, what's the next slide, Jamie?
Oh yeah, we have a few more lifestyle factors. So obviously, yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I just wanted to, I think there's a lot of people talking about antihistamines in the comments here, and some people are asking which one should I take. Some people are saying they don't do well with me. And so I was just wondering, Kimberly, especially this overlap of anxiety and histamine with the H4 receptors, can you just, tell us about, maybe the first generation of antihistamines and how they affect your brain, and then also the newer generation?
Yeah. So like the older generation antihistamines are going to be, or an H1 blocker, right, would be like Benadryl. And those are going to make you sleepy. For some people, they're a great rescue med. Some people just do best with that. But usually we recommend people do a Gen 2 H1 blocker, which would be like a Allegra, a Zyrtec, Zizal, Claritin is another. And each of them are different, right? So it's kind of seeing how you do with each of them, and knowing which ones work well for you. But that's gonna kind of help block the histamine receptors, and so it blocks more than like the DAO is degrading that histamine, and that antihistamine is more blocking the histamine response in the gut.
Yeah. So super important for people to, again, I feel like whether we're talking about the gut or anxiety or histamine, like my number one thing is like, if you're in pain or you're annoyed, your capacity to actually deal with the root causes of your illness are like really low. Like you only get 30 minutes a day before you're overwhelmed, annoyed, pissed off, whatever it is. But if you can get you out of pain and into a regulated state through the use of, in this case, maybe an antihistamine like Zyrtec and a DIO and a mast cell stabilizer, that MC360 cells, the goal is to get you into this regulated place so that then you could do this other slide that we have in front of us here, which they take more focus, and frankly, in my opinion, they take more concentration. And it takes energy to like not do your normal habit of whatever it might be, that, chronic stress or sleep optimization. If your normal habit's to watch Netflix, till 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and like to shut it down early, you got to have some self-control. And if you're really unregulated and you're using Netflix to cope, I get it. I've done it. I've been there. But that's why taking, some pharmaceutical options as well as supplements can be extraordinarily helpful, whether it's for the gut or for histamine related issues, is because you can get to a stronger regulated place to deal with the harder things.
Yeah. And the point isn't to stay on antihistamines and all these supports forever, because I'll tell you, the list I was on was like this long. I am on none of them. Like I maybe might use some if I had some kind of flare or something like that. But the goal is to get at that root cause of what's really driving that histamine overproduction in your body. Or the imbalance going on.
Yeah. And I think we mentioned this earlier, as far as some of these lifestyle factors that are up on the slide right now. It's like when you do something for one area, you're supporting the other area. And so just doing a little bit, like, someone asked, Stephen mentioned the device for his nervous system. I'm not sure you mentioned an actual device. There's a lot of things we can be doing for the nervous system. And we have a lot of other replays on nervous system. So go ahead and search, nervous system tools, or nervous system in our archive of Facebooks and YouTube lives, because we do have a lot of things you can be doing for nervous system. And that is part of stabilization. So like if you address the nervous system, you're going to help regulate those mast cells. You're going to produce less histamine, and therefore you may see a decrease in the anxiety symptoms. And so the thing here is that it's a comprehensive approach. So things that you're doing for the histamine can support the anxiety. Things that you're doing for the anxiety may end up ultimately supporting reduction of histamine as well. So that's kind of the point of this slide is a little bit of everything. But even just doing one little thing is moving the needle. Okay, and then Stephen, I do want to turn it over to you because obviously today's topic was the connection between histamine and anxiety, but you have another product, or actually two products, that I want you to be able to share today, because Kimberly and I both, before we got on, like, we keep our
That's awesome.
literally on our desk, so both of us.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I struggle with anxiety, and I have a history of it being way worse than what it is now. It flares for me in times of stress or when my gut was really a wreck. It flared for me during the pandemic, and I was just I have my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, but my girlfriend at the time, was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. She's doing great now, but my family has a lot of autoimmune conditions, and I was just seeing people really struggling during the pandemic, and I was like, how am I going to like help these people make it through? And so my sleep was like a wreck. And I think that's one of the things about when your histamine and your anxiety like team up on you. Like, I feel like I want to punch a sleep expert. Like, don't tell me about earplugs and white noise machines and blackout curtains and meditation and mantras. I will choke you out. Like, when histamine and anxiety team up on me, it'll drive me batty. And so luckily during that time frame, I had connected with another functional medicine doctor, and he had really bad social anxiety. And so he had found out about this herb Malungu, and he had started creating these products, B Serene, that you see in front of you. So we ended up working together. I ended up acquiring the formulations from him and upgraded them to sort of healthy gut level standards. And the amazing thing that I didn't even know until this morning that I was researching, that I sent to Jamie and Kimberly, is that in certain areas of the brain, the neurons that make histamine also make GABA. And it doesn't appear that they can make them at the same time. In other words, if they're making GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, it's a down-regulating neurotransmitter. It's important for your sleep. It's important for your anxiety states. You can search it. You can ask ChatGPT. You'll find out a ton about GABA and how great it is for all things related to the gut, the brain, like your whole health. So what was interesting is I didn't realize until this morning that if your brain is stuck making histamine, it's going to be making less GABA, because it can only make one or the other. And so in a way, you want to use the sleep-wake cycles to switch your neurons from making histamine to GABA. And when it does that, the production of GABA actually turns off the production of histamine, which I was like, makes so much sense. That's brilliant, brain and body and whoever made this thing. And also, again, I was like, dang, stupid circadian rhythms always plaguing me. But if you're like me and you struggle with these things, there are other supplements that can help you sort of strengthen your parasympathetic. And that's where things like B Serene Daily, which are the capsules, or B Serene IR, which is the cream that Kimberly and Jamie put up there. The GABA is only in the cream form, and that's because all other versions of GABA that I've tried to make or take through the gut just don't seem to get to where I want them to get to. I don't seem to feel it. And so B Serene IR was it's the thing I use at 3 a.m. if I wake up. It's the thing that I use if I lay my head down and I've done all the sleep hygiene. I'm like ready to go. And my mind is like, nuclear war, and like, my remodel is going sideways, and this contractor I want to do bad things to, all these different things. If I can't get that to stop, that's when I use things like B Serene IR to just help the racing thoughts go away and sort of down-regulate myself. The fact that it's topical, you just put it on your like wrist or your arm, your forearm. You put a little back here on your vagal nerve. It's pretty potent. And of course, everybody's nervous system is different. Some people, 1/2 pump of B Serene IR, and they're like writing in, telling us how they couldn't even walk because it was so strong. And then other people write in, they're like, I did 8 squirts and I didn't feel it. And, so like your nervous system is different than my nervous system and everybody else's nervous system. And so your dosage is going to be different. I do 3 or 4 pumps when I can't sleep, and I don't usually have to use it again. Other people, like I said, only use 1 pump or 2 pumps and they feel great. And then the B-Serene daily is something I just take on a daily basis because I'm sympathetic dominant, meaning my nervous system from things that happened to me at birth and through childhood. I wake up, I precognition. So before I get to choose anything about my day, I'm already in fight or flight. Like I'm ready to go. And that has benefits, right? That helps me be an entrepreneur. It helps me do a lot of things, but it has serious drawbacks when it comes to histamine production, when it comes to gut health, and when it comes to like longevity and things like that. And so I do a lot of things. I exercise, like exercise can be really helpful to switch you into parasympathetic. I do meditate, I do journal. I try to get outside every day, walk the dogs, pet the dogs, like do all these different things that actually help my nervous system. And I'm still just kind of always fighting this fight that I kind of lose. And so that's where taking B-Serene daily capsules, which are a blend of all herbs that are, none of them are stimulatory. They're all parasympathetic. They're all down regulating. I take those at dinner, and that just kind of helps me unwind throughout the night. So I don't spend too much time on Netflix, or I don't start projects, at 7 or 8 o'clock when I should be winding down. Instead, I'm like in a research rabbit hole. And so it's not for everybody. And it is different than anything else out there that's like a stress support supplement or a adrenal support supplement, because nothing in the product, there's no ashwagandha, there's no rhodiola, there's nothing, and there's nothing wrong with those herbs, but they're not parasympathetic only herbs. And so that's where the B-Serene lineup can help you if you're trying to, figure your way through this healing journey.
And I can see someone saying, I love that it's topical. So the IR is topical and the other one is a cap, just for clarification. I also saw somebody ask about salicylate intolerance. So these are not products that you would use, even the topical with salicylate intolerance, because they're herbal, but that's only a portion of the people. Everybody else would be fine, as long as you tolerate those ingredients.
Okay. Stephen, how are you on time?
Yeah, I can go another 15.
Another 15. Okay. So let's go over.
Let me just grab that one question there. Do any of these herbs interfere with prescription medication for anxiety? That is a great question. Yes. So the only people that are cannot take these products are people who are on prescription lithium. There is a potential interaction with prescription lithium, which I think is called lithium carbonate. If you get it from your actual doctor, there could be some interactions with that lithium. There's another type of supplemental lithium called lithium orotate, which there's no interaction there. So just be aware. And of course, if you are concerned that it's going to interact with something else, just ask your provider. You send us an email at support@healthy-gut. We can walk you through that. In general, they're very mild, I would say. Being that this is a sensitive topic, we can't, number one, they're not drugs. They don't just turn off a switch like an antihistamine or something. So they work in a totally different manner. So it's not just like a perfect off switch for racing thoughts or whatever. But depending on your level of sensitivity, if you're in bucket, was it 1, 2, and 3, right? 3 is the most sensitive. Is that right, Kimberly?
Yeah. Hypersensitive, sensitive.
Yeah, hypersensitive, yep.
Yeah. So if you're in bucket 3, then obviously start with sprinkles, or maybe even don't try anything except for the topical. If you're in bucket 2, go slow. If you're in bucket 1, you should be just fine.
Yeah, bucket 1, the more robust supplement people are usually able to start with a full cap with most new things.
Okay. Any other specifically about B-Serene before I kind of backtrack to?
No, I mean, again, they're different than other stress and adrenal products. So, and also the dosage is extraordinarily important. Some, like my mom takes 6 per day of the B-Serene capsules, and she hates the IR. I don't know why, but she doesn't like the IR. She said it gives her dreams are too intense with it. And she needs 6 of the caps a day, and she gets really anxious if like we're running low on stock or something. She's like, can I get some? I take 4 of the capsules per day, and I don't use the B-Serene IR except for when I wake up. But before I was taking that many capsules, because I was like, oh, well, I don't really need the capsules on a regular basis. I was using the B-Serene IR cream like 6 days a week. And now that I'm taking more of the capsules, I maybe use the cream once a week, if that. And so it is like a yin and a yang, if you will, around your body, your chemistry, as well as the time of your life you're going through. Like when I'm traveling, I take a lot more B-Serene IR because sleeping in hotel rooms on new beds with new sounds, like I get all anxious and, all that kind of stuff. And so I use a lot more of it when I'm traveling. And so you just need to know that these are just like Benadryl, frankly, in your medicine cabinet. That like sometimes you could take more of a certain substance and it can do certain things for you. If you get experience with products like these, you can just kind of keep them around the house and maybe not use them on a daily basis, except for when your life changes and you're like, oh shoot, I really need some support right now.
Yeah. A lot of what we talk about is just like educating people on tools in the toolbox, right? Like what works for someone might not work for someone else. So it's like about learning different tools, trying them on, seeing what for you as an individual works. All right, so let's go back up to some of the beginning questions that came in. Let's touch on this one real quick, just like quick, because I know we have a lot of other lives on this topic, but what is one thing that somebody can do to support that small intestine so that it can support the production of DAO?
I would say I hate it when it's like, what's the number one thing? But
what's one thing? One or two things?
What's one thing? One thing is
because Melissa also asked. So
yeah,
we'll each an answer.
The one thing to make your small intestine work better and help you with everything else that's going on in your small intestine would be digestive enzymes and holozymes. These are specialty enzymes with a bunch of minerals and a very specific formulation that work really well even for sensitive folks. But by taking extra digestive enzymes, you're ensuring that your food gets broken down properly and absorbed as fast as it can, and it doesn't leave extra food around for overgrowth and other inflammatory actions. Like if you're, for instance, like one of the problems with wheat and gluten and gliadin and everything is that the protein complex doesn't get broken down and it becomes this immunogenic. Basically, it becomes this sticky molecule that your immune system starts to get mad about. Well, that can happen for other foods as well. Corn has a problematic protein called zein, and it's nothing on the level of gluten. It's not even the same category, but it is potentially hard to break down for certain individuals. And so taking an enzyme can help work through these problematic proteins that your immune system can get really mad about. And so that would be my number one thing. But if I could have a number two thing, it would be don't bog your small intestine down with jobs that it's not equipped to do. And what I mean by that is your stomach has very important jobs in the digestive pathway. And if you force your small intestine to do the job of the stomach, you will forever be having small intestine inflammation. You'll be forever having digestive issues and other types of gut, immune, brain dysregulations because the small intestine is not equipped to do the job of the stomach. And the job of the stomach in general is to detoxify lipopolysaccharides, LPSs, coming from your oral microbiome, coming from the food we're eating. Its job is to break down protein structure so that the small intestine can actually have access to it. It's to kill and neutralize any sort of random bugs that are coming into our bodies. It liberates B12 and calcium and magnesium and iron and all these nutrients that we need to heal. The small intestine can't make up for a sluggish stomach. And if you make it do its job, the other job as well, you're going to struggle and really pay the price. And so please take time to check out your stomach acid, check out your stomach health, learn about that. We've done many shows over the last 6 years almost on this topic. So go watch one of those, please. I think it's really important to protect our small intestine.
Yep. Kimberly, are you still there? Oh, there you go.
All I was going to add was stay out of mold. Stay out of mold, yeah, because mold detoxes through our gut, right? So sometimes I see some people get worse gut issues when they get out of mold. Why? Because we're starting to detox it, right? And so that detox is coming through the gut. That's why we get the binders and are trying to protect the gut and not have stuff recirculate. But yeah, that's a lot of toxins coming through the gut.
Yeah. Okay, so Stephen is asking if antihistamines help with the H4 receptors to calm the mind. I think did we answer this earlier in the show?
Not directly. There's no H4 blocker that I know about. Stephen, I don't know if you saw anything in research. It's usually like H1, so it is reducing the amount of histamine in the gut. It doesn't. So that's probably where I would start. Right? Why is your body producing excess histamine? How can I block some of the histamine? And it is all these layers. And then how can I break down that histamine better with the DAO?
Yeah, and maybe look into GABA, like things that could help with GABA, your circadian rhythms, things like that, because that's going to affect your H4 pathways as well.
Okay, Joni is asking, how can one know if they have histamine intolerance versus MCAS? Zach, if you would drop we have a whole blog post on this, so I do want to direct you there, but Kim or
yeah, I would just add that a lot of clients come in, they both, right? So I had both. And I know the more that you can get on top of that histamine intolerance piece, the more that's going to calm the mast cell piece, because the mast cells release histamine. So it's that cyclical kind of thing. And we do see a lot of overlap between the two, but know that mast cell is usually more extreme, right? There's a lot more you can kind of do, like the histamine intolerance. Those are the people that do some of these steps that we're talking about today and feel so much better and don't have a lot of complications. And you can have them each separate, or you can have them both together. So yeah, it's kind of the layer thing we were talking about.
Okay. Catherine is asking if there's a specific test to determine if you don't produce DAO effectively.
I haven't seen a test. There may be. Usually we're sort of trying some DAO is usually the cheapest, easiest way to see how that works for you. And hey, a lot of people are like, hey, this makes a huge difference in how I feel onboarding this. So that's how they know.
Yeah, well, there are some. I've looked into this pretty extensively, trying to get access for myself and to play around with my team, which most of my team is histamine intolerant or MCAS, and the lab testing is really hard to get to. It's mostly research grade, which means like you and I have like almost no possibility to get access to it. And then I think what's really fascinating is it seems like DIO serum markers are potentially super unreliable, meaning they don't correlate to your actual histamine intolerant symptoms. And that could be for a number of reasons. Medicine is always struggling with this issue. Like it could be that your DAO and your blood is fine, but the DAO in your gut is not fine. And so right now, like you said, Kimberly, I don't think there's anything out there that you can get access to on a regular basis, and B is actually useful clinically to your life. Usually right now, I think the best thing is just to try different dosages of a replicable, I like Histamine, but feel free to try whatever product you want, and just see if you notice anything.
Okay. Let's see. So this is in regards to the low histamine diet, freezing only meats, because we mentioned freezing leftovers or
right.
veggies too.
So know that meats will grow histamine faster than your veggies. Some people are super sensitive though, and kind of need to freeze everything. Mm-hmm. When I would have a dinner, right, it would have both meat and veggies in it, right? So I did freeze both together in like individual meals is how I did it. Mm-hmm. But know that the meat is usually the more important part in terms of really reducing that histamine piece.
Yeah. Okay. Marsha's asking if these will help with ADHD, and I'm not 100% sure if she's asking about DAO or the Be Serene products, but Stephen, I know you've talked about this before, so if you could share a little bit.
Yeah, so our Histaharmony DAO has been studied in Europe for ADHD, and it was studied in like kids, not the kids were between 5 and 12, I believe. And the dosage was 2 per day, I believe. The dosage for fibromyalgia with the same product was 4 per day. So again, just be aware that dosages change based on people, conditions, things like that. And they did see concentration scores and other scores improve for those ADHD individuals. And so if you Google it. There's a decent connection between histamine intolerance and ADHD. And this should be like a no duh, because a lot of people with histamine have histamine related issues have had like brain fog, trouble concentrating, memory, like not like memory, like dementia memory issues, but like just random memory stuff. Like, gosh, what was I doing a little bit ago? I just got totally distracted. That kind of like train of thought style memory stuff. It's much harder if you're in a histamine flare, frankly. And so things that can reduce histamine, whether you're breaking it down with DAO or you're inhibiting it through a mast cell stabilizer, low histamine diet, etc., can be very helpful for focus and concentration.
So I see that Marcia's actually asking if about the B-Serene specifically.
Oh, I wouldn't say directly that they're an ADHD product, but I would say that some of the hallmarks of ADHD are looping thoughts and like mind racing, and the inability to kind of like slow down your processing, basically. If that specific component is a troublesome component for you, like before sleep or at other points in times, then yes, B-Serene IR I think would be helpful, and it is helpful for me. But as far as like if I wanted to focus and like, just produce a lot of work this morning, I wouldn't be taking B-Serene IR, because I actually I was trying to do content for my team. They're like, you got to make all this content. And so they're like, you got to show it, put it on yourself. And so I was doing all these cuts where I was putting it and I was rubbing it in. I did like 8 in a row at like 9:30 in the morning. And all of a sudden I was just like slammed by this like wave of tiredness. And I was like, oh man, I got to go like and take a nap. And it was like, 9:30 is like when your cortisol is peaking, like all your hormones are like peak productivity. So you can, you just have to be careful when you use the product at what dose you use the product.
Yeah. And I've had the same thing happen to me with some nervous system work too. So a certain thing, just anything that's sort of switching you from that sympathetic state to that parasympathetic state can do that. Yeah.
Are there any other questions that you guys saw that you wanted to answer real quick before we sign off for the day?
People have asked several times about the nervous system device I use. It's a Pulsetto. It's a vagal stimulation device. I think that the research on vagal stim for basically HRV, vagal tone, parasympathetic tone, those are all synonymous names in my opinion. I find doing vagal stim easier and more reliable gains than humming, jumping up and down, gurgling, singing. I don't enjoy any of those things, and I often forget to do them. But with a device, I have an app. It pings me. It tells me to do it. I have this, ritual. I feel it, so I think there's something happening. So I get a little placebo effect. And I tried a number of them, and many of them, like you have to like basically like tase yourself and shock yourself. And I just didn't enjoy it. And so the Pulsetto is one that kind of solved that, because it has a band that comes around. Again, it's like many of the things we mentioned here today. If you do it in aggregate for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, they have some really cool data of feeling better over time, but don't expect it to like save the day and fix everything tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for being on today. If somebody is kind of wondering, was I misdiagnosed with anxiety? Maybe I have histamine intolerance. I just want to invite you to learn more about our clinic. We are a remote health consulting clinic. We have 2 tiers of support. So if you go to the link at the bottom, mastcell360.com/application, you'll see at the top, we have a few offers, like a one-time consultation with a health coach, where we can kind of better understand your case and give you some real actionable steps, versus our ongoing long-term support with health coaching and lead practitioner support, as well as emotional support. So for anyone here today on this call, you could do a discovery call and learn more about the emotional support, which may play a role in people with anxiety as well. So lots of good options for you guys. We want to thank you so much for being here with us today. Any parting words of wisdom earlier today?
I think it's trying some things and seeing what works for you. And it's never one thing, right? Searching for that holy grail, which I did myself for years, right? It's this, it's that. It's the multiple layers and trying things. And even if something didn't work for you, say 5 years ago, it's using that tool at the right time too, and kind of getting more informed and educated about the tools.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I'm just feeling right now is if you are always afraid or skeptical that an intervention, whether it's a sunlight, a pulsetto, a histoharmony, if you're always like skeptical that it's going to work, you are falling prey to the nocebo effect, and you're actually creating the conditions for it not to work due to the mental models that we have and the way our brains and everything are wired. And so my wife kind of makes fun of me because I'm always the ever hopeful, like, this is going to be amazing. It might be my ADHD. It could be something else, but I think it's a really good model to think about whether you're going to try DIO again, even though it's failed you in the past, whether you're going to try some sort of new antihistamine or some sort of new intervention, just believing that this time good things are going to happen. You get an instant 30% increase just due to the placebo effect, and you block any potential sort of anxiety, nocebo sort of skeptical thing that you put on supplements or interventions. And it could be really helpful for this crowd, I think.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, as always, Stephen, for joining us today, especially last minute. So we just want to share that love and gratitude for you. All right, everyone, have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.